The parchment of her first-class degree felt heavy, yet Tori couldn't shake the frustration. She had vowed not to pursue a master's unless it tackled a real problem, and finding a supervisor willing to back a project on indigenous African plants, especially against incurable modern diseases, was a battle. Many senior academics dismissed her ideas as folk remedies or unconventional science. After months of rejection, she finally met Professor Ikon, a quiet phytochemist from Ghana, who saw the scientific fire in her eyes. "You wish to test the leaf extract of Moringa oleifera against hyperglycemia models?" he asked, tapping the proposal. "It is ambitious, Tori, but necessary. The proof must be in the science." With Professor Ikon's support, Tori secured a master's position, and she dove into the lab, determined to validate her deeply held belief. She spent months meticulously extracting compounds, running complex chromatography, and setting up her in vitro assays. The air in the lab, usually sterile, was now rich with the sharp, earthy smell of dried moringa leaves. The pressure to prove her conviction was immense. Then, one late Tuesday night, hunched over a plate reader in the deserted lab, the pivotal data appeared on the screen. The crude methanol extract showed a significant, measurable inhibition of alpha-glucosidase, a key enzyme involved in carbohydrate digestion, at certain concentrations. The results indicated that the plant extract was, in some ways, more potent than the synthetic control drug she was using. Tears welled up. It wasn't a definitive cure yet, but it was tangible, scientific proof. Her conviction wasn't just a hopeful dream, it was measurable reality. The moringa tree, standing stoically under the African sun, truly held secrets the world needed to know. She smiled, whispering to herself, "There it is." Her journey to solve the world's problems had finally begun. The success of the crude extract was only the beginning. Professor Ikon, a master of analytical chemistry, walked Tori through the next, most crucial phase, isolation. "A crude extract is a soup of hundreds of compounds, Tori," he explained. "We must find the precise spoon that holds the healing power. This is where chemistry takes the lead." Tori learned the delicate art of fractionation. She used column chromatography first, applying solvents of increasing polarity to separate the methanol extract into smaller, purer groups, patiently collecting liters of separated liquid. Then, they employed the precision tool of high-performance liquid chromatography, HPLC. Under Professor Ikon's watchful guidance, Tori monitored the machine for days, isolating fractions based on minute differences in their retention time. The goal was to obtain a single, pure compound that could be structurally identified. "Every peak is a potential remedy," Professor Ikon stressed. "We test them all." Tori focused her bioassays on the most promising fractions. Since chronic diseases involve systemic damage, she knew they needed to test for more than just blood sugar control. They needed to investigate the complete healing properties she intuitively believed in. She first tested the fraction's ability to neutralize free radicals, the cause of much cellular damage in chronic illness, using the DPPH radical scavenging assay. The results were stunning. One specific compound, provisionally labeled MC1, Moringa Compound 1, exhibited antioxidant activity far surpassing common vitamins. Knowing that inflammation fuels many modern diseases, Tori moved on to an in vitro anti-inflammatory test using macrophage cell lines. Again, MC1 dramatically suppressed the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines, suggesting it could act as a potent systemic bomb. With the purified, potent MC1 in hand, Professor Ikon moved to determine its exact molecular structure. He used mass spectrometry to find its molecular weight and nuclear magnetic resonance, NMR, spectroscopy to map the arrangement of its atoms. The result confirmed MC1 was a known flavonoid glycoside, but its potent biological activity was unprecedented, confirming a powerful synergistic effect with other components in the plant. The final, most challenging step was moving to the in vivo model, testing the compound on living organisms. After obtaining rigorous ethical approval, Tori began administering controlled doses of the MC1 extract to diabetic rat models. For 6 demanding weeks, she observed daily, measuring their blood glucose, tracking their weight, and monitoring their general health. The results validated every ounce of her faith. The rats receiving MC1 showed stable, significantly lowered blood glucose levels, reduced visceral fat accumulation, and improved markers for liver and kidney health. Standing in Professor Ikon's office, looking at the final analysis, Tori didn't just see a master's thesis, she saw the beginning of a revolution. The moringa tree, once dismissed as a simple weed, now had undeniable, complex scientific evidence proving its power. She had taken a local wisdom and translated it into the universal language of science. The path to curing the world's problems was now clearer than ever. The air in the defense room was heavy with skepticism, thick as the methanol vapors she was used to. 3 senior professors sat behind a long oak table, ready to challenge her unconventional work. Torai gripped the remote control, Professor Ikon seated calmly beside her, radiating his quiet confidence. She started her presentation with the initial problem, the global rise of chronic diseases and the underexplored wealth of African biodiversity. As she moved through the methodology, the rigorous bioassay-guided fractionation, the precise mass spectrometry data, and the conclusive NMR structure of MC1, the skeptical frowns began to soften. The moment of truth came with the in vivo results slide. She presented the graph showing the stable, controlled blood glucose levels in the treated rats, juxtaposed against the skyrocketing numbers in the untreated group. A hush fell over the room. The senior pharmacognosist, Dr. Nkosi, who had initially mocked the project as witchcraft, leaned forward, studying the statistical significance. "Miss Tori," Dr. Nkosi said, his voice flat with surprise. "The data on the anti-inflammatory cytokine suppression, it is statistically robust. And the isolation, by all standards, is complete. You have successfully identified and validated a highly potent anti-hyperglycemic and anti-inflammatory agent from a plant dismissed by this institution for decades." Torai simply nodded, her relief a quiet tremor under her professional exterior. "As Professor Ikon taught me, sir," she replied, "biology showed us the effect, and chemistry revealed the cause. The moringa has answered our questions." The unanimous vote to pass her thesis, with high distinction, was a victory, not just for Tori, but for Professor Ikon and his enduring belief in solving problems scientifically. The celebration was brief. The real challenge, Tori knew, had just begun. Her master's work proved MC1 worked in a controlled environment, but turning that purified compound into an accessible medicine for the people who needed it most was a Goliath task. "We have a molecule, Tori, a potential lifesaver," Professor Ikon said, standing beside a towering patent application form. "But now we need funding for Phase 1 human clinical trials. We need a pharmaceutical company to invest billions, or we must start a company ourselves. The politics of patents and profit are far tougher than separating molecules on an HPLC." Torai looked at the complex forms, the daunting estimates of money and time. This was the true wall that separated the laboratory from the suffering people. Yet, her vow, to research a solution to the world's problems, hadn't diminished. It had intensified. "I won't stop here, Professor," she declared, her exhaustion forgotten. "The people cannot wait for Big Pharma. If chemistry revealed the cure, then I will find a way, perhaps through biotechnology or sustainable cultivation, to bring MC1 out of this university and into the world. The journey to the cure is not over, it has just moved from the bench to the battlefield." Torai knew her PhD would be dedicated not just to discovery, but to delivery. Torai and Professor Ikon decided the academic route was too slow. Instead of waiting for massive pharmaceutical investment, they chose the path of local impact and sustainability. Professor Ikon offered a solution, his small, neglected piece of inherited land on the outskirts of the city. Within weeks, armed with their scientific knowledge and driven by sheer will, they began tilling the soil. They planted hundreds of Moringa oleifera saplings, managing the farm with the precision of a controlled laboratory experiment. Sustainable cultivation became their first principle. Torai used her knowledge of plant physiology to optimize the growth, ensuring the leaves yielded the highest concentration of MC1. This was her commitment to the land, ensuring that the medicine was locally sourced and ecologically responsible. Next, they co-founded a small pharmaceutical company, ChemBio Solutions. The name was a perfect reflection of their philosophy, the integration of chemistry and biology to create solutions for the people. Their initial facility was modest, a small, government-certified workshop equipped with a drying oven, a grinder, and a simple tablet press, financed by Professor Ikon's life savings and a small grant Tori managed to secure. Their first product, Moringa Plus, was a standardized tablet. Using the scientific data from her thesis, they created a formulation that didn't just contain raw leaf powder, but included a precise, scientifically validated concentration of the MC1 compound to ensure consistent and potent dosage. The intense, shared labor of starting ChemBio Solutions broke down the last walls of professionalism. They spent days together under the sun on the professor's land, planting the moringa saplings, sweat blurring the lines of their shared vision. They celebrated small victories, a successful harvest, the first perfectly pressed batch of Moringa Plus tablets, with a quiet, mutual pride that felt deeper than friendship. It was on the Moringa farm, one cool evening as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the newly planted rows in shades of orange and gold, that Professor Ikan finally spoke of his feelings. They were checking the moisture content of the drying leaves, the air heavy with the scent of their life's work. "Tori," he said softly, turning from the harvest. "I have spent my life seeking the missing molecules that hold the cure." His sweet, familiar smile deepened, losing its professional formality and gaining a vulnerable warmth. "My greatest desire is not just to cure the world's chronic diseases, but to build a home and a future with the one person who shares my destiny." Tori, who had long admired his patience, kindness, and unwavering commitment, felt a wave of clarity. She didn't just respect him, she loved him. Their destinies were perfectly aligned, he, the king of chemistry who provided the foundation, she, the fierce biologist who provided the drive. They married 6 months later, choosing to hold their small, joyous ceremony right on the burgeoning Moringa farm, symbolizing that their union, like their company, was rooted in the fertile African soil and dedicated to nourishing life. They stood side by side, committed not only to each other but to their shared mission. Tori and Ikan, husband, wife, scientists, entrepreneurs, were destined to work together, using the powerful integration of chemistry and biology to solve the world's healthy problems by the power of the Moringa tablet.